All right, so today I wanted to talk about an interesting story I seen here out of the Vancouver Sun, and it's titled BC Glaciers 38% thicker than expected, surprising study finds. Now, again, it is not surprising. It's not surprising to anyone actually paying attention because if you're actually paying attention, you would know that the whole climate change narrative is complete bunk. Right? It's complete bunk. Um, Again, I'm very surprised that they publish this kind of stuff. I mean, usually this kind of stuff wouldn't get out, but I wanted to talk about it because it did get out, and this is an important topic going forward because the Trudeau government is um, hinting around at increasing it again. I think they're actually already doing it. I think it's just a matter of when they're doing it. But again, like this is something that I don't know why more people don't talk about it. I don't know why more people don't talk about it. And I think another really astounding thing is the amount of people that don't necessarily agree with this kind of stuff, but yet still go along with it. I think that's another thing that's pretty astounding, in that anybody who is even remotely paying attention, again, you know the carbon tax doesn't do anything. BC has had a carbon tax since I think it's 2008, and their own government numbers show that it hasn't done anything. It hasn't done anything, right? So why in the world are we doing this when we know that it doesn't do anything? It doesn't make any sense. Now, what is the reality behind climate change? Again, I've said this a million times, but I'm going to keep saying it. The reality behind climate change is to push for socialism, right? That has been the goal. That has always been the goal, right? And again, how do we know that? How do we know that? Well, I think we know that. There's many examples I could give, but some stuff off the top of my head is, well, number one, you have AOC with the Green New Deal. The guy that wrote it up with her admitted that the goal is to push socialism, right? He literally is, quoted saying that. And not to mention, too, if you look at the Green New Deal, they talk about stuff like, social justice and reparations and all this kind of stuff that is not, even whether or not you agree with it, it has nothing to do with the climate, right? So again, the goal is very obvious. It's to push for socialism. I mean, another way of doing it too is that the argument for going away from oil and gas goes something like, oil and gas are finite resources, therefore, it's unsustainable, right? So we should look for something that is quote unquote renewable. Even though many quote unquote renewable energies are finite resources as well, which is very ironic. But um, I mean, there's many problems with that. Number two, we have probably thousands of years of oil and gas still to be used, so that's not something we should be overly worried about. But again, let's just go with the argument though. If oil and gas is unsustainable, therefore we should go away with it. Well, why in the world would we not cut the deficit? In fact, probably to zero, right? The current levels of debt are obviously unsustainable. If you understand basic math, you would be able to figure that out. But do the climate zealots ever point that out? Do they ever talk about lowering the deficit, let alone getting rid of it? No, they never do, right? So it has nothing to do with whether or not things are sustainable. It has everything to do with pushing for socialism. It has everything to do with pushing for socialism. I mean, not to mention too, you look at a lot of these people that push this stuff, like, did they actually believe what they're saying? Like, you have all these celebrities and governments that talk a big game, but yet they're flying around on their private jets. They own multiple mansions. Like, again, like, how many of these kind of people do we need before you start questioning the narrative? And again, even if you want to still go along with the whole climate change narrative, then where are you calling out the DiCaprios and these kind of, and the Al Gores of the world? Like, where are you? Like, these people are, if you actually cared about climate change, then you would be calling these people out because they're horrible ambassadors to the cause, right? They're horrible ambassadors because they're blatant hypocrites. Like, they couldn't be more hypocritical, right? I mean, not to mention too, you take people like Al Gore. One of the fundamental theses behind his predictions is the ocean levels are going to rise, and he has at least one house right along the ocean. Right. Same goes for Obama. He pushed climate change, and his top advisors is another guy who's on the record saying the ocean levels are going to rise, but yet he just bought an eight-figure mansion along the right along the ocean, right? So again, like, they don't actually believe what they believe. And this is another thing that I don't understand, how people can just gloss over this topic. Like, I really don't. Like, just imagine if someone said, yeah, hurricanes are going to destroy the world. Hurricanes are going to destroy the world. The amount of hurricanes is going to go up 100x, over the next year. obviously that would never happen, but yet they turn around and they go buy a house in Louisiana or Florida, right? Like, South Louisiana or Florida. Like, that would make no sense because that's where, a lot of hurricanes end up. So again, like, if these people don't even believe what they're saying, why in the world would we? Like, why in the world would we? Well, we shouldn't. And this is the reason that the left is so pro this stuff. It's like I say, it's because at the end of the day, it's about pushing for socialism, right? At the end of the day, it's about pushing for socialism. It's very obvious in that, again, like, the many of the people pushing for it, they don't even believe it themselves. They don't even believe it themselves, and not to mention too, there is no. This is another blatant lie the climate change zealots always bring up. It's, oh well, 97% of scientists agree. Well, number one, that's not true. That was an incredibly misleading study, and that you basically had to answer yes to multiple questions before they would even include you in the study. And those questions were basically, do you believe in man-made climate change, right? So again, it was a very misleading study. Um, what percentage believe? I honestly have no idea. Again, it's very hard to trust articles these days because one will tell you 20%, the next will tell you 80%, and again, you have no idea what to believe. So, what percentage it is, I don't know, but I do know that it's not the vast majority. It's not the vast majority. Um, so anyway, like I said, I think it's a very interesting article nonetheless, and I think it's another thing that you can pull up when again people bring this up too. And then again, how do you explain this kind of stuff? Like how do they explain this kind of stuff? Again, they just go on to, again, they make up their usual excuses about, oh, we're not out of the woods, all this garbage. And again, they're never going to admit they're wrong. They're never going to admit they're wrong. And again, there's a lot of stuff to dive into when it comes to these topics too. Like, you can go down so many rabbit holes. You could go down the CO2 rabbit hole, the temperature, the history. There's so many things you can bring up that it's just hard to get into. But anyway, like I say, I think it's a very interesting point because the article is stupid, but point nonetheless. So anyway, if you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. I would, very much appreciate that. But like I say, at the very least, just follow, like, subscribe, share, do all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it there.